Harlem slept that night. A summer breeze moved trash down Lenox Avenue. Music leaked from somewhere distant, and then it happened. Not a gunshot, not a scream. A hand, careless and entitled, closed around the wrong woman, around his wife. The street didn't explode, it stiffened. Men looked away. Windows stayed shut. Everyone understood the math instantly. This wasn't about jealousy or pride, it was about order. The man who reached out laughed, not knowing laughter could sound like a death wish. Across the block, Bumpy Johnson didn't raise his voice or quicken his step. He stopped. Harlem stopped with him. Because when the calmest man is touched, calm becomes a decision, not a guarantee. Nothing followed. No slap, no warning, no sudden rush of bodies. The man was released, the street returned to its breathing, and Bumpy Johnson walked away as if nothing had happened. That was the mistake. Harlem had seen rage before. Rage was noisy. Rage burned fast and burned out. This was different. This was quiet. Too quiet. Words spread without words. Card games stalled. Bars lowered their music. Men who owed favors felt a weight settle in their chest. Enemies didn't celebrate, they waited. Silence stretched into hours, then days, and each hour sharpened the fear. Because restraint, coming from a man like Bumpy, wasn't mercy, it was calculation. Every step he didn't take meant another door closing somewhere else. Every breath he didn't raise meant time being measured. In Harlem, silence was never empty. It was a countdown. And everyone knew when it reached zero. Someone would pay for touching what was his that night. This wasn't a lover's quarrel or a drunk man's mistake. In Harlem, wives were borders, untouched, unquestioned, understood. To put hands on her wasn't intimacy, it was a declaration. It said the rules bent, that protection failed, that the man who kept order could be tested in public. Everyone saw it, and seeing made it political. Dealers, cops, bookmakers, preachers, each read the same signal and felt the ground shift. If this passed, everything would follow. Respect would thin, fear would scatter, authority would become noise. Bumpy understood that faster than anyone. He didn't need witnesses to tell him what it meant. The city told him itself. Storefronts leaned in, corners listened. Even the brownstones seemed to wait. This wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about restoring a shape to Harlem before it collapsed into appetite. What came next wouldn't correct a man. It would redraw the map. And once a city enters a fight, it never forgets who taught it a lesson. In that moment, streets, alliances, and futures were enlisted. Because Harlem wasn't scenery anymore, it was a participant, watching, remembering, and ready to answer when the silence finally moved against everyone involved. He lived loud. Too loud for Harlem, too careless for the rules that kept men breathing. He laughed when others lowered their voices. He made a show of disrespect, believing volume was the same as strength. People knew his name because he forced them to. He fed on eyes, on flinches, on the small humiliations that echoed after he passed. The grab wasn't his first insult, it was his loudest. He wanted witnesses. He wanted laughter, shock, the rush of getting away with it. And when nothing happened, he mistook silence for surrender. He celebrated early, drank louder, boasted wider. He told anyone listening that some men were myths. What he didn't understand was that noise attracts attention, but silence attracts planning. By the time his confidence swelled into certainty, the decision had already been made. He just couldn't hear it. In Harlem, that deafness was fatal, because the loudest man never notices the room go quiet. And by the time he does, the room has already chosen a side. He thought reputation made him untouchable. It never occurred to him that reputation works both ways. One builds noise, the other builds endings. And silence had already picked which one would survive this. Just not him. Not after that night. Everyone knew Bumpy Johnson didn't confuse anger with action. Anger was loud, sloppy, temporary. He had learned that young, watching men burn themselves out over insults that barely mattered. What mattered were rules. Respect wasn't emotion, it was structure. Loyalty wasn't affection, it was insurance. Consequence wasn't revenge, it was education. Sitting alone, he replayed the moment without heat, stripping it down to facts. A line had been crossed. It was public. It was intentional. That meant the response couldn't be fast, and it couldn't be personal. It had to be correct. Bumpy understood something most men didn't. Punishment only works when it teaches everyone watching. If it feels emotional, it invites repetition. If it feels inevitable, it rewrites behavior. So he waited, not to cool off, but to sharpen the lesson. Each hour of silence clarified the outcome. This wasn't about hurting a man. It was about correcting a system that briefly forgot who enforced it. By the time the city grew restless, Bumpy was calm. Calm meant ready. The ending was already chosen, measured, proportioned. The only thing left was timing. And timing, like respect, was something he never rushed. Somewhere out there, a loud man was still celebrating, unaware the verdict had already been reached, signed and sealed in silence. Long before anyone else realized the decision was final, nothing exploded. That was the genius of it. Phones stopped ringing back. A chair at the card table stayed empty. A supplier suddenly claimed shortages he never had before. Small things, almost polite, but they stacked fast. Men who used to laugh with him now checked their watches and left early. Conversations lowered when he entered, then died. No one explained, no one warned. That was the pressure. Harlem was closing its fingers without showing a fist. Bumpy didn't need threats, he needed alignment. He let the city do what it always did when given direction, adjust. Every closed door redirected loyalty. Every stalled deal taught caution. The enemy felt it first in his pocket, then in his pride. He told himself it was coincidence. Bad luck. A temporary chill. He still didn't hear the silence working. From Bumpy's side, the moves were simple, almost boring. Remove support. Delay comfort. Make presence expensive. By the time unease turned to fear, the pattern was complete. He was alone in rooms that used to welcome him, surrounded by people who wouldn't meet his eyes. Somewhere between confusion and panic, the truth hovered just out of reach. He wasn't being attacked, he was being erased. And he didn't yet. No one said the number out loud, but everyone felt it. 3 days. Long enough to fix a mistake, short enough to die from it. Time turned heavy. Mornings arrived sharper, nights stretched thinner. Every hour he waited narrowed his options. Men stopped returning messages altogether now. Safe places felt temporary. Even his shadow seemed unsure. In Harlem, deadlines didn't come with clocks. They came with silence. An apology could still land if it was loud and clean. Disappearing could still work if it was fast and final. Those were exits. Pride ignored them. Pride whispered that backing down would look weak, that noise could still overpower quiet. He chose to believe reputation was armor. By the second night, anxiety curdled into anger. Anger into bravado. He drank on corners again. He laughed too hard, daring the city to blink first. It didn't. Somewhere, Bumpy Johnson allowed the time to run out without touching a thing. Because once the window closed, lessons changed shape. When dawn came on the third day, the choice had been made for him. He doubled down. And in Harlem, that was the only move worse than running away completely. He chose the place carefully. Midday, open street, enough eyes to matter, not enough to turn it into theater. Bumpy Johnson arrived without an entourage, without heat, just presence. The loud man saw him too late. There was no shouting, no sermon. Just a quiet instruction delivered so plainly it couldn't be misunderstood. What followed wasn't brutality. It was correction. Deals were named, favors withdrawn, protection publicly revoked. Each sentence peeled away a layer of reputation until only the truth remained. The same witnesses who once laughed now watched in silence. The man tried to speak, to explain, to bargain, but words have no value once order is restored. Bumpy didn't touch it. He didn't need to. By the time it ended, everyone understood who stood alone and why. Power changed hands without blood changing pavement. The humiliation landed clean, precise, unforgettable. Harlem felt it settle back into place, like furniture returned to the right room. Men adjusted their posture, voices lowered, boundaries reappeared. The rules were simple again, written without ink, but impossible to miss. Respect was restored, not loudly, but completely. And the city remembered why calm had always been the most dangerous sound of all. No cheers followed, only understanding, the kind that spreads fast and lasts longer, teaching every corner that some lines end careers, others end breathing without a single warning. What followed wasn't terror, it was order. In Harlem, respect was never a feeling. It was currency, circulated carefully, protected fiercely. Loyalty wasn't friendship, it was shelter from consequence. What Bumpy enforced that day wasn't vengeance, it was balance. A public insult had bent the city's spine. A public correction straightened it. Men understood the math. You could test limits in private, negotiate in shadows, but some lines carried communal weight. Crossing them didn't invite anger, it invited response. That distinction mattered. Justice felt clean because it fit the shape of the offense. Nothing excessive, nothing hidden, just enough to restore alignment. Afterward, silence returned to the blocks, but it felt different. Music played again, deals resumed, corners relaxed. The quiet wasn't dread anymore, it was agreement. Everyone knew the cost now, and knowing removed the urge to gamble. That's why no one ever tried it again. Not because they were afraid of pain, but because they understood the rules had teeth and memory. Harlem didn't need reminders shouted into the street. It carried the lesson quietly, the way cities do when order has been properly restored. And it stayed that way decades. After it was done, Harlem let out a breath it hadn't realized it was holding. Not relief, not celebration, something steadier. Streets resumed their rhythm, but with cleaner edges. The story moved fast, then slowed, turning into something fixed. People didn't argue about what happened, they adjusted around it. Bumpy Johnson's name settled heavier after that, not louder. He became less visible and more present, the kind of power that didn't need reminders. Men recalculated. Alliances realigned quietly. The loud learned to soften. The reckless learned to watch. What mattered wasn't what he did, but how little he needed to do. That restraint hardened into legend. Years later, details blurred, but the shape remained clear. Touching certain lines changed the weather. Harlem remembered the lesson because it worked. No bodies in the street, no fires, just order restored with precision. The city carried on, stronger for it, aware of the balance that held it together. Loud men still came and went, leaving noise behind them. Calm men stayed. They decided outcomes. Harlem, older and wiser, breathed evenly again, knowing it had witnessed something rare, not revenge, but control returning to its rightful place. It wasn't mercy that lingered, but memory, the kind that shapes behavior long after voices fade. Teaching a city that survival favors patience, and that quiet authority outlives every echo left by arrogance in the end of all stories told.